Some people spend years surviving lives they never stop to question. That line from a recent article, "The Things That Keep Us Alive," names something many people quietly recognize. The writer tells of a 48-year-old man in a stroke unit, successful, still holding his phone less than 24 hours after his stroke. His main concern was not what had caused it or whether it might happen again. His question was, when can I go back to work? The writer remembers standing there, wondering what exactly was he so anxious to return to? And did he even know anymore? That is not a judgment on the man. It is a question for all of us. What are we living for? The article says that during war, life can shrink until it becomes a series of basic calculations, food, electricity, internet, whether the night will stay quiet. That is survival. But there is another kind of shrinking that happens more quietly. People wake up, work, reply to emails, attend meetings, scroll, sleep. Years pass. The body keeps functioning, but the soul begins to drift. Viktor Frankl once wrote that human beings can survive almost anyhow if they have a why. The article suggests that modern people often reverse this. We perfect the how while losing the why. Into this context, our weekend readings speak with great force. Isaiah says, "Observe what is right, do what is just." Then he speaks of foreigners who join themselves to the Lord, whose prayers and sacrifices will be welcomed. Isaiah emphasizes that God's house is not built for the comfortable few, but for all who seek justice, worship, and belonging. God imagines a house of prayer for all peoples, a life opened outward, a life with meaning beyond self-preservation. Paul, in the letter to the Romans, reflects on the mystery of Israel and the Gentiles. He knows human history is tangled with rejection, disobedience, misunderstanding, and mercy. Yet he insists that the gifts and the call of God are irrevocable. Paul is boldly asserting that God does not withdraw the call even when we lose our way. That is good news for anyone who feels they have been drifting, functioning, surviving, but no longer truly living. God's call remains. The why may be buried, but it is not erased. Then Matthew's Gospel tells an intriguing story about the Canaanite woman crying out to Jesus for her daughter. She is an outsider. She belongs to a people often distrusted by Israel. At first, the encounter is difficult. Jesus speaks of the children's bread and the dogs. But she refuses to disappear. She says, "Yes, Lord, yet even the dogs eat the scraps that fall from their master's table." The key message of Matthew is this: faith refuses to accept that anyone's hunger, pain, or hope is outside the reach of God's mercy. This woman knows her why: her daughter, love, life, mercy. She is not distracted by status, reputation, or respectability. She is not performing a role. She is fighting for life at its deepest level. Theologian José Antonio Pagola says that this woman helps Jesus' disciples discover that God's compassion is not confined within the borders of Israel. The table is wider than they imagined. Rowan Williams, reflecting on Christian discipleship, often reminds us that holiness begins when we allow the other person's need to interrupt our settled world. In this gospel, the scraps are not a sign of scarcity, they reveal abundance. Even what falls from God's table is enough to heal. The article says that what kept the writer alive during war was not optimism, motivation, or productivity. It was something smaller. Writing, reflection, routines, future plans, the refusal to let survival become the whole meaning of life. Perhaps that is what distinguishes living from merely surviving. Survival asks, how do I get through this? Faith asks, what am I living for? Isaiah, Paul, and the Canaanite woman all point in the same direction. Human beings come most fully alive when they discover that their lives are held within a larger story, the story of God's faithful and unrelenting love. The key question this week is simple. What is keeping us alive? If the answer is only work, pressure, fear, or habit, then life begins to narrow. But if the answer is love, mercy, justice, faith, and the call of God, then even the scraps become enough. The gospel promise is not that life will be easy. It is that no one is beyond the table. No cry is too foreign. No outsider is forgotten. No life is meant to become mere survival. God keeps calling. Mercy keeps widening. And even now, there is bread enough for all. Amen.